Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the afternoon. Joining me, as always, it's Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. Charlie, fresh off of his latest trip to Voorhees to check out the
scenic Voorhees.
Yeah, the Briere and Brent Flahr joint pre-draft press conference, and we will get into plenty of that today.
And you're arguing that I am a slow driver. Come on. I got here in at least 5-6 minutes to spare.
In plenty of time today. I would never intimate such a thing. No. We want you, however, before we get into all that, it is Spirit Week here at PHLY, and we have an answer on why yesterday there were no Super Chats. It's because there are no Super Chats this week. So if you want to make a donation to the boys, to the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, you do it in the donation box. It's right under the chat. So there are no Super Chats.
Okay.
It's just make a donation through there. And that explains why, for the first time ever, we had no Super Chats.
We usually have at least
we
5.
Have like 5,
sometimes
10,
up to like
40. Yeah, like. So that explains that. So make sure you are participating. If you want to donate to Big Brothers, Big Sisters,
it's a great cause.
Do it in the donation box and hit that like button. We need the likes. We need them. I see we're already at 46. We're like 2 minutes into the show. That's great. But as I tell you every day, 200 minimum by the time we get to 1 o'clock. Otherwise, I am disappointed in all of you.
He's got the disappointed dad look.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to tell you about our draft party coming up Friday, June 27th. Tickets are selling like hotcakes. Are hotcakes pancakes?
Yeah, I always assume they were pancakes.
Like I'm not the biggest pancake guy, but I guess everyone.
Pancakes.
I like pancakes, but
I prefer French toast, but pancakes are a solid number 2. Actually, pancakes and waffles are probably tied for 2.
I think I would go.
All 3 are good.
Yeah, I think I would go waffles #1.
Okay. Respect.
But I want a savory breakfast more times than not. I'm not so much on the sweet side. But regardless, June 27th, Friday, a week from, 10 days from now, June 27th at South Philly Chickens and Pete's, brought to you by our friends at Philly Sports Trips. You need to go to allphly.com right now and get your tickets. They are going to sell out. We have to sell tickets this year, $5 for general admission, $55 for VIP. Because capacity last year was exceeded and then some. And Chickies and Pete's, still a functioning restaurant despite our party going on. There has to be a cap at some place. So if you want to attend this year's draft party, it's going to be great. Flyers, 7 picks in the top 48, picking 6th, 22nd. It looks like right now 31st, but we'll see how the next 2 games of the Stanley Cup final go. And then all the second rounders on Saturday. It's going to be a fun draft. You're going to want to participate in the #1 draft party, which is ours consistently, along with Broad Street Hockey. Get your tickets, allphly.com. Hit that events tab. All right, we have a lot of fun to get to today. Like I said, a mystery guest. It is Mystery Guest Day here at PHLY Spirit Week. We're having different fun events throughout the week as we send all of our proceeds to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. We've got a lot of boys and girls. Big Brothers, Big Sisters. I don't know why I keep messing this up today. Whatever. Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. That is where all of the proceeds go this week for Spirit Week. Okay, I said it right this time. We've had a lot of guesses. We put out a mystery guest graphic half an hour ago.
Who the mystery guest is going to be? Well, we don't know who the mystery guest is.
We don't. Yeah, so I am looking forward to it. Based on the graphic, I think it's the guy that they superimpose on WWE match cards when the title is vacant. I think it's that guy.
Okay, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, just no face, just an outline. So
what would be very funny is if it was gritty. And we only got responses in squeaks.
Like squeaks or just at one point he would hold up signs.
Yeah, the signs would be good.
Yeah, he visited WIP early on, and Ava printed out signs because I couldn't be there that day. And Ava had signs that were I missed you, Bill, and then handed him one that was but I'll see you in your nightmares.
Yes.
And the handlers of Gritty were we're really trying to get away from this this idea that he's nightmare fuel because he's for children. So we're not totally comfortable holding up that one specifically.
I love it.
But yeah, it would be very funny if it was gritty. Trying to like, what would be the funniest possible? Well, if it was like Kelly, that would be really funny.
Yeah.
That would be a good joke.
Yeah.
It is, but we will be joined by the mystery guest in a little bit. This morning on, we're going to get to it maybe after our guest. This morning on Anthony Gargano's show, they talked to Jeremy Roenick, who had some interesting things to say about Rick Tocchet. We'll play that for you all in a little bit. Maybe while we're waiting, Chuck, just what was like your top impression of the Briere and Flahr pre-draft press conference?
Well, as usual, it was very buttoned up. They didn't give a ton of information, but there were a few interesting tidbits, particularly about size, about the size of their tier in that number 6 range. You know, how many players do they see as a plausible option at 6? There were some interesting things, but as usual, Danny holds his cards pretty close to the chest, and he did that again.
Yeah, it seemed like they said a lot. Like, it was over a 20-minute press conference, I'd say. But
yeah, about 22 minutes.
Yeah, but like, what are you really going to get out of them? I think we can draw certain conclusions from some of their answers, but it is kind of, yeah, man, the draft is in 10 days. What, you think we're giving you our board?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly. You're trying to dig for info, yes, but you know that they are trying to throw up the kinds of smoke screens. But you can use these pressers to read between the lines. I was actually talking about it with a friend yesterday about 2023, the lead up to the Michkov draft, and I came away from that presser. It was the first time, because in the lead up to that, you know, the weeks leading up, I was like, I don't think they'll go Michkov, too high of a risk. I came away from that presser being like, oh, they'll take him.
All right, and with that, we are joined by today's mystery guest. It is time to find out who it is. And I don't know if we could have landed anyone better. It is our friend from Flyers Daily. It is Jason Myrtetus. How are you today, Jason?
Mystery solved.
Mystery solved.
It was.
I don't know if people, they saw me pop up and they said, who the hell is he? The mystery still isn't solved.
It was, we actually had some people on Twitter guess you. And I was like, I don't know. And then Jamie was like, you know, just because he's bald, we don't all look the same. Like, he was trying to throw me off the scent. Jamie, of course, but he wears a hat every day, so it's hard to tell. But Jason, it is great to see you. First of all, most of our audience is also your audience. I think there's probably quite a bit of crossover in that Venn diagram. We know what you've been going through. How are you feeling? And can you update us at all on the fight you've been going through the last few months?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, it's great to be on with you guys because, you know, I said this the other day when I was on my podcast that, you know, you guys were part of BSH, and that was kind of to me, that's the kind of launch point of Flyers podcasts in this town. That's kind of what started it all. So first of all, thanks, because it gave me a career after getting canned from radio and an opportunity to continue to talk about this sport. So as far as what I'm going through right now, I'm in kind of a second phase of my treatment. I did 16 weeks of chemotherapy at the beginning of the year, basically January through April, which was an absolute hellscape. Then I had a little time off, and I started about 3 weeks ago radiation treatment, which I do 5 days a week, and along with, they're here somewhere, the chemo pills. Oh, here they are. One of my medications. So I take those in the morning and at night. It's not as bad as the chemo was, but there's some unpleasant side effects that have invaded my daily life again, and I'm looking forward to this part being over, and that'll be on July 14th. But I'm hanging in. Where sometimes it sucks more than others, but sometimes you can only move an inch forward in a day, and you take the inch, and other times maybe a couple of feet. So just continue to grind away and get better and get ready for another season.
Yeah, Jason, and we're certainly, you know, I think everybody in the Flyers community, Flyers Twitter, Flyers online world is in your corner. You're obviously such a big part of the community, not just because of Flyers Daily, but I think that a lot of people, especially those who did listen to sports radio years and years ago, kind of are always going to have a soft spot for you in particular because you were maybe the only
only one
on major sports radio during those years that, number one, talked about hockey, but number two, really knew the game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought my time on the radio was the really important thing was for me to be just authentic. And the sport I knew the most because I played it and I grew up with it and studied it and everything was hockey. I wasn't going to abandon it. Plus, I just love the sport. And I am definitely and have never been a gatekeeper of the sport. I think there's still too many gatekeepers out there, frankly. People that got mad about Taylor Swift and I don't give a crap about Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce, but if they bring more eyes to the game, to me, that's good. So I don't care about, I don't need to see them. But yeah, I was out there always just flying the flag for the game because it's the game that I love. It's given me so much. And it's funny because kind of the question prior to this one and this one tie together because I've had to attack this battle the same way I attacked everything as a player playing this game growing up or coaching it. And, they're all cliches, one shift at a time, one game at a time, whatever. But it has helped me immensely in my battle with colorectal cancer. And like you mentioned too, Charlie, so many people having my back in the hockey and Flyers, kind of ecosystem that we live in. And it's been incredible. And this is at a time in our lives where, there was a lot of faith in humanity that I lost over the last couple of years because of social media and a lot of other things and division and absolute arguments and those kind of things. But going through this with this audience has kind of renewed my faith in humanity a lot because there's so many people that have helped me. So many people that have helped me that don't even know they've helped me just by sending me a note when I needed to see it. So, yeah, it's amazing. It's been very humbling to get the support that I got a text message yesterday from Torts again. He's been fired for a while there, and to get those kind of things from Torts and fans and everything has been everything for me. It gives me strength every day.
Well, Jason, I think that's a great segue into our first, actual hockey question. Do want to talk a little about the team here because Hockey and Hounds, I think you had as close of a relationship as anybody with John Tortorella. That was a pretty big hit here. What is your lasting impression of Tortorella? Will it be like him as a person or, the coach, Torts? Like, what do you remember most about John Tortorella's tenure?
Just like Danny said, Torts is complicated so I have to separate those two things because I did have and still do have a personal relationship with him, and he's been a guy that has really had my back during a very difficult journey of my life. I mean, I hear from him every week, and I have since the moment I made my diagnosis public. And he's not just sending me a token test. A lot of times he uses it to motivate me. And the way he motivates me is the way I think he coached a lot of players. There's often a lot of expletives in the text that he sends me. Don't bleep it up, those kind of things, but a bit tongue in cheek. Yeah. So I do have to separate the two. I mean, the impression that I still get of him is that he's a very good man, a bit misunderstood in some ways, but completely understood in other ways as a hockey coach. He is complicated. And he's a guy that burns hot when it comes to hockey. And I think he's learned some things over his years of, certain places when to go in and dig a trench and when not to now. But he's still a complicated head coach for a team. So I have no problem with the decision to move on from him. I think he was the right coach at the right time. Now it's incumbent upon Rick Tocchet to take this organization to the next steps. But next steps can't happen unless you've got players. Because Rick Tocchet ain't going to skate a shift, and I don't think we want him to at this point in his life. But he's got to have players, and that's where Danny comes in. That's where this time of year comes in because they've got a lot of draft equity in the top 50. How you use it, and I made this case on Flyers Daily. Like in today's NHL, you can't make mistakes. It's too unforgiving in a 32-team salary cap league. Florida's made the least amount of mistakes over the last probably decade, and they've made mistakes along the way. I mean, you look at when you see player intros of the Cup final, they're like, in his 14th season in the NHL, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I'm going, what? This dude's been playing 14 years? Like, it takes a long time. There's pivot points along the rebuild to eventually get it right, to hopefully get to the stage and a chance to even play for the Cup.
Jason, you mentioned about Rick Tocchet, and obviously Rick Tockett's taking over as the head coach of the Flyers. Long time, member of the Flyers community, so he's been around for years. I'm just curious, how familiar are you with Rick Tocchet, the person, and what were your thoughts on the hire?
I've known Talk for a long time, many years, going back when he was doing TV here for a little while. I was doing pre and post game live. When I was at WIP, he would come in from time to time and sit in with Angelo, kind of like Jonesy did, maybe to a lesser degree. So I've known him over the years. I've never been really personally close with him. A lot of people that I know are, but I know him more as an acquaintance and a guy that I kind of worked with and those kind of things over the years. But I do know, and I think you can tell that he's obviously a high character communicator. That's kind of what he brings to the table. The X's and O's in hockey kind of are what they are. I mean, he's not going to come in here and develop some new system that's going to revolutionize the game. Nobody's kind of doing that at this point. I thought it was funny about people freaking out about the dump and chase, and their notion of the dump and chase is the 1984 dump and chase, and then right after I kind of saw that people freaking out, oh, Florida turned into a dump and chase team, I charted the next Florida Panther game and found that through 2 periods of play, 17 of the first 19 zone entries were dump and chase, and they gained possession on 15 of them. So I kind of laughed and chuckled about that. But he's going to have to communicate. Today's athlete is different. He's going to have to develop, and that's the big question for me, Charlie. There's going to be development levels here at the NHL level. There's just no doubt about it. When you're a team in a rebuild, how does Talk do with that, both in the mentality part and the development of the skill? Because, I look at a guy like Owen Tippett. He needs further development at the NHL level. To me, it's between his ears all day, every day. Same thing for, a player like Cam York. Is the message coming from a different set of lips going to make things click to a higher degree for them going forward? That's one of the real big questions I have going into the season, especially with Owen Tippett and Cam York.
Jason, it's funny. You shouted us out on one of your episodes recently, and we had a question come up in our chat a few days ago about what podcasts I listen to. And I said, while I'm constantly searching for the content, you also do a daily show. You know what it is. I can't allow myself to listen to too many local shows because I don't want, this random Flyer show talked about this. Let's continue that conversation. Then I just feel like I'm not doing my job. But I love listening to Flyers Daily because you're not screaming at me. You get great interviews. And the one thing that Charlie and I both throw our hands up about, goaltending. We both go, hey, you know what? Goaltending's voodoo. Don't know what to tell you. You actually try to break down and understand the position. You played it yourself. What do you think about, how do you think the Flyers should handle the goalie position? And were the goaltenders as bad as the numbers last season? Do you actually think they got by far the worst goaltending in hockey?
I think their goaltending may have been worse than the numbers at times, frankly. I can identify with last year's goaltending for the Flyers. It was an easy year for me because they let in a lot of goals, as did I. So when you see goaltenders struggle, it's often easier to analyze them than when they have success, and because you got to look for the reason for their success. But conversely, you got to look for the same thing. You got to CSI it when they get scored on to find out why. And sometimes that CSI doesn't go back 30 or 90 seconds in the game. It can go back into a previous period. I always bring this one up. The Flyers played against Bruins 2 seasons ago. It was in Tort's first year, and they ended up losing the game. I think it was 6-3. And there was a goal that beat Carter Hart high glove on the short side from the top of the circle. And it was a bad goal, and people were killing him for it. So I went back and I rewatched the game and looked at the goals allowed and the chances against. And he had already given up in that game 3 goals backdoor because nobody was covered. So on his blocker side, 2 of them were to Pasternak, no shock. And I can't remember who the other one was. I think it was a defenseman pinching from the point coming in backside. And then there were 2 other chances in that game backdoor that weren't covered that he made the save. And eventually in the third period, he cheated. He leaned off his post. Why? Because he already given up 3 goals backdoor and the 2 other grade A chances. He figured another one was coming because he doesn't have coverage there all day. So look, that's the part that you gotta consider those elements when you look at a goal against. You have to really look at all the things that go into a goalie's thinking and how he feels on the ice. And the structure or environment in front of a goalie, you can't just dismiss it. It means a ton. That being said, Flyers goalies weren't even close to being good enough last year. Ersson had a couple stretches where he was, especially that January into February stretch, but overall not. I just think he never got his legs under him. Ivan Fedotov just simply wasn't an NHL goalie. And can he develop into one? Well, I don't know. I mean, usually developmental years come well before 28, 29. Kolosov and the 3-goalie system to me is just a nightmare. There's no upside to it other than a guy is getting an NHL check, and I don't give a damn if Kolosov gets an NHL check. I don't care. And then as you head into the draft, I think you should draft a goalie with a top 3, first, second, or third round pick every year, because you got probably like a 16 to 18% chance of that goalie even making it to the NHL. So you always got to be stocking. And if they do that this year, maybe they take one with a late first round pick, 31 or 32. It doesn't mean they don't like Carson Bjarnason and his development. Doesn't mean they don't like Zavragin and the way he's developing. It just means you never know because the position's very difficult. So, I mean, it's just one of those things you got to get right. And I'm really this is a really long answer, by the way. I'm really conflicted on how to handle it, going forward as a building team. When you see teams have success with Aiden Hill or guys that they didn't pay a ton of money to, do you go out and pay a $10 million on a $70 million contract for a guy like Bob? Because I've seen other cities, like Hellebuck is the best goalie in the league. Can't get out of the second round. So I'm really conflicted on how to handle it these days, although as a goalie card-carrying union member, I want them all to be paid.
Jason, just a couple more minutes here. Thank you so much for your time. I got to know who you got tonight, who you got winning this Stanley Cup Final Series as it comes down to the final few games here. Florida up 3-2, looking for the back-to-back. Best player in the world on the other side. Impressions of this Stanley Cup Final, and where do you think it's going?
Trying to find a coin so I can flip it. I have no clue who's going to win the game tonight. I have never had, and this isn't because I'm sick, I've never had less feel of a series in my entire life than this one. And the way Edmonton's gone through these playoffs, they're going down 2-0 to LA and coming back and everything. I have no idea. I would have thought Edmonton would have given Florida way more juice in Game 5. They had nothing. But I think we look at that sometimes and go, well, that Edmonton wasn't ready to play. They couldn't take their game to the next level. That's their failure. And I don't know that that's true. Because I think Florida, when they're on their game, they make you look like you're failing because there's just so much puck support and so much structure and waves of defenders or forecheckers that it makes it look like they make you look so bad in the way they beat you down because they're so relentless. And so, you look at I looked at the Bennett goal and I saw that I had such a problem with that goal. I'm going, this guy has got 15 goals in the playoffs. He's the leading goal scorer on the road. How the heck is he wide open between the dots? I don't care that Tkachuk's shot was blocked and it ended up there. That guy cannot be left in the middle of the ice unchecked. And that was a major problem for me. But why was he unchecked? Because Florida just comes in such waves that you can lose them. And you can lose a guy like Bennett. So I don't know what's going to happen tonight. I wanted to go 7 from a selfish thing because I just want to watch more.
Yeah.
And in Game 7, anything can happen, especially Florida winning again. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen tonight. I thought that, Florida blowing a 3-0 lead in the first period to losing over. I mean, these things just are illogical. So who knows? And I just feel like I'm waiting for McDavid to just really take a game over. He's got a ton of points, and he had a lot of points last year too. But I feel like we haven't seen that put everybody on his back and just carry his team to a win. Does he do that tonight? We'll see.
Yeah, that's kind of been our conversation. He's been good. He's clearly McDavid, but has he been that nuclear option? I'm so much better than everyone else. Haven't quite seen that from him yet, despite the scoring numbers. Thank you so much.
Awesome job on him.
Oh, that's the other end. Is it him not living up to expectation, or is Florida really just this freaking good? I mean, 3 straight Eastern Conference finals or Eastern Conference titles. Yeah, probably they're this good.
And then also because they're playing in Florida tonight, they can much easier match Barkov against McDavid. So makes it tougher. It doesn't make it impossible for him to have the big game, but it does make it tougher.
Yeah, look, it's a huge task to be asked to kind of limit McDavid and Draisaitl. It's hard to do that. I think, and obviously, you look at a guy like Sasha Barkov. He's done it better than anyone, and it's the value of that player. Like you see a lot of times on Flyers Twitter. 200-foot player. These guys that can defend in all zones. Well, last I checked, hockey's a cumulative sport. If you can prevent those guys from scoring, that's as good as a goal for, and that's what Barkov does. So. It's been remarkable. People complaining about, Barkov hasn't showed up in the series, doesn't have many points. Yeah, but he's prevented those guys from actually kicking the teeth out of you. So to me, that's a huge net positive from a player standpoint. Real quick, before you guys go, you guys know that I check in from time to time.
Yeah.
Like in the chat.
It is much appreciated, yes.
Yeah. And Bill, like I try not to watch too many too, because I don't want to continue other people's conversations.
Yeah.
But I'm a consumer. Like I love when I get in the car, I want to hear about hockey. Sometimes I go, I want to hear hockey. I want to hear about goaltending. So I'll listen to Kevin Woodley and the boys at In Goal magazine. Or I'd go, I just want to hear about the league. And I'm really hooked on Doug McClain's appearances on Kipper and Bourne at the moment. I think he does a great job. Or, obviously 32 Thoughts or whatever. Chicklets, it just isn't for me. But no, you guys do a great job.
The entire media has to listen to 32 Thoughts. It's part of our contracts.
Yeah, that's like the info. Yeah. That's homework.
Yes,
exactly.
It's why I always said Jason Stark's radio segments were great, because he did all the homework in the world, and you could go to the water cooler at work and sound like a smart baseball guy, because he would roll out 60 stats and stuff. He was so prepared for his radio hits, and Elliott's the same way. So, but no, I consume your podcast and pretty much on a daily basis. And those times when I was hunkered up in bed and throughout this winter, and just being able to watch you guys, it's good conversation. So, I love the Flyers podcast community, because I think it's gotten so big, and there's so much variety to it. You know what I mean? Which is what I want. I like that variety. Like I bring something totally different than you guys bring something totally different than another podcast brings. So I think that's great. It gives the people a choice, and it gives them a lot of choices and some quality content. Because ultimately we all want to hear about or talk about this sport in a way that's rational. Most of the time we can be irrational. Yeah. I mean, and there's times for that.
That's why sports exist.
Yeah.
To be ridiculous sometimes.
I always felt like if you can try to educate people a little bit too, the game gets more fun the more you know about it.
Absolutely.
More the whys and things like that. Like, why are they attacking this way, or why are they defending it like that? To me, that's when it gets really exciting. So, no, you guys do a great job, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much, Jason. That is Jason Myrtetus.
Do I get the belt now?
We'll see what we can do for you. Absolutely. Jason Myrtetus from Flyers Radio and the Flyers Daily Podcast. Thank you so much for making the time today.
Anytime, boys. Thanks.
All right. That was really cool. That was a really cool mystery guest.
Mystery guest.
I did have like a few guesses as to who it might be. And it was cool just to have Jason on at this point, like in his battle with colorectal cancer. And he seems as if he's making his way through that. And listen, he is one of those, you mentioned it, when he was on sports radio more regularly, like, oh, there's one of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's one of our guys there. And that was my whole idea behind when we started. I guess it was the freaking Orange update, and that turned into Sons of Penn, and that turned into BSH. Like, I got tired of being one of those people who's, why don't they talk about hockey on sports radio? Like, well, why don't I just talk about it? Like, it ain't that hard to start a podcast. And like, it seems as if it's really grown, and Jason has been a huge part of growing it as well. So really happy to have Jason aboard today. All right, we got to pay a couple bills here and get caught up if this ever loads for me. Our reads for the day. And while I'm doing this, Charlie, why don't we get a little bit more into the Briere and Flahr press conference? Because the first thing that I took a note of was kind of all options on the table. You don't expect anything else to be said, but the idea of, you think there's really a chance they're going to select all 7? Because I've said, like, yeah, that's not happening. There's only so much ice at rookie and development camp. Like, what are we going to have, a 150-person lecture hall?
And there's even less ice this year, because as someone who was just at the facility, the entire main rink, like the rink that the Flyers primarily use for their practices, completely devoid of ice. They are redoing the entire thing. There is nothing there. And it does not seem like there will be ice on that rink for development camp either. I'm told we'll be fine for training camp, but for development camp, they're going to have even less ice than they usually have.
But they did say, like, is there a possibility you make all 7 in the top 48? And they were both like, yeah, absolutely. That's a possibility.
You never know.
I guess.
I think it's unlikely.
Yeah.
But there's an element of, hey, if they want to go all in and make all 7 of those picks, I don't necessarily have an issue with it. It's just, man, you better hit on most of them.
And it's just the least, like, as someone who's just like, I want the shiny new toy, that's a whole lot of waiting for the new thing. All right, let us take our first commercial break. Gotta lead it off with our friends at the BetParx online casino, as I just totally stress out our producer today. Thank you so much, Bryn. BetParx online it's one of the things I love about Parx Casino. Listen, going over to Parx, checking out the Excite Center, going to all the restaurants, seeing live shows, and playing the games, going to the sports book, all of that is a great freaking time. But you can't go every day. You have other things going on in your life, but that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of the BetParx app, because it has all the games we love to play in person at Parx Casino, like the pop culture slots, roulette cards, even dice games, and so much more. And they can all be played on the BetParx app. Parx Online Casino has the games you love, whether you're at home or on the go. So download the BetParx app and create an account today to receive an offer you just can't pass up. New users are eligible to receive up to $1,000 back if you are down in the first 24 hours after signing up. BetParx Online Casino is available to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and Michigan residents. Terms and conditions apply. Parx Casino, this is how you win. Must be 21 and over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. While we're here, I got to tell you about our friends at Art of Words, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, and Art of Words proves it. Each piece is made entirely from handwritten words, like the name of every Eagle forming the link and every Philly shaping Citizens Bank Park. And it's not just sports. They've been able to capture Boathouse Row, Reading Terminal, the Philly skyline, the Jersey Shore, and so much more. These are unforgettable gifts for sports fans, grads, housewarmings. Hey, maybe you missed Father's Day. Well, here's your chance to make it up by getting these beautiful pieces at Art of Words. And they're also available for dozens of teams and cities too. So there's something for everyone. They're total conversation starters. You'll spot a name. Suddenly that name will spark a memory. More names, more conversation. You know, dudes hanging out, just naming guys for like 3 hours at a time. That's literally what this is, and they are really cool pieces of art as well. Check them all out at artofwords.com. That's artofwords.com. And use code PHLY at checkout for 15% off your first purchase. All right, the Briere and Flahr press conference. This was one of the, I believe this was one of your questions, Charlie, just to get into really like the way they're viewing this year's draft. Mm-hmm. We all know how the lottery turned out. We had the live reaction show here. They fell from 4, had the worst possible outcome, going down to pick 6 in this year's draft. And you posed the possibility of, when this happens, did you fear you fell out of a tier? Like, okay, well, Schaefer is 1. Maybe you have Misa Hagen's 2, 3, and then maybe that's a separate tier. Maybe it's part of another. Did you think falling from 4 to 6 knocked you down from like tier 1.5 or 2 to 3, whatever? Yeah. Like, the response was not anymore.
Yes.
Oh no, this was never. We're good. Didn't care. It was, oh yeah, when the night it happened, we were like, And then after some research and tape study and scouting, not anymore. What did you take from that?
Yeah, well, what I had heard back in March was that the Flyers at that time believed that if they ended up at least 6, if they stayed in the top 6, they were going to get a really good player. So my read was, okay, they see it as a 6-player draft. They can't fall past 6. If they fall past 6, they'll be worried. So that's kind of the information that I've been going with since then. Today, getting the little adjustment to that, which seemed to be, without saying it, at one time, maybe we saw this as a 6-player draft where maybe we're only getting the guy who slips. Now it seems like, and as you said, Danny very interestingly said, not anymore. Not after spending the time that we've done the last few weeks watching video on these guys. We feel more and more comfortable and confident that we're inside, okay? That tells me that since March, it's not necessarily that they've dropped anybody out, but they maybe have added a couple more guys to that 6-player tier. And Briere straight up said, which it seems like, without saying it, it seems like he basically was like, look, Schaefer's the number 1 pick. He's going number 1. We all know it. More or less, both him and Flahr said it without saying it.
Because they were asked at one point, like, so many guys were injured, and it was like, Schaefer only played 17 games. They're like, you don't need to watch even 17 games.
You don't need to worry about him. Yeah,
he's fine.
He's a great player.
You don't need to scout him.
Exactly. But he did say, I believe Flahr said later, that from 2 to 3 to 8, all those guys, there isn't a lot of separation, and they feel like they're confident they're going to have their pick of, 3, maybe even 4 of those guys that they have in that 2 to 8 tier. It's interesting because, as we've discussed, the public consensus seems to be that it's from, there's 1, 2, Schaefer, Misa. Interestingly enough, it seems like they don't necessarily have Misa on the same level that they have Schaefer. And then there is 3 to 6. You have, Denoyer, Frondel, Hagens, Martone, and then there's a little bit of a dip before you get to, let's say like 7 to 12 or something like that. It seems like the Flyers maybe have 2 of those guys in that 7 to 12 range up there with Martone, Frondel, Denoyer, Hagens. And what's interesting to me about that is that I'm not sure they did in March, but it seems like they do now as they've watched more tape and gotten to know these guys. And I mean, the 2 guys that I would say the 3 guys that jump out at me as the most likely to be those 2. Brady Martin, obviously, because he's had the biggest helium. Jake O'Brien, before Martin had the big jump at Worlds, at under 18 Worlds, O'Brien looked like the guy who had the helium. He had the big second half, and teams were seemingly convincing themselves about him. And then you have Roger McQueen as a possible guy because perhaps they got the information about his medicals and they're like, okay, now we really like him. But I would guess that, if that tier for the Flyers extends to 8, it's 2 of those 3 guys that are in that tier, which is interesting because, again, is this setting the Flyers up to do a Luchenko-ish, taking someone that isn't in the publicly accepted top tier, even if, and we talked to Corey Promen about this, it seems like internally in the game, Brady Martin is in that tier for most teams.
Brady Martin might be a top 5 pick, and they don't have the option.
Might be.
This answer, when it was like, oh, yeah, it's like 8, and we talked about this off the air. Last year, it was, it's like 12 guys or whatever. There's that tier there where they should be good. And they were like, yeah, we think it's like whatever their number was, 14 or 16 guys. And
they were 13, I believe.
It was a larger number than the publicly accepted, well, this is the group here. You're going to get one of these however many guys. This answer was like, oh, yeah. So maybe optimistically, they looked at McQueen and were like, he's fine. Cool. Yeah. Or they looked at Brady Martin and went, Flyer, baby. He's on. Looking, everyone thinks he's great. He's part of this group as well. Maybe it's some mix of that. Maybe they're like, yo, we didn't think we wanted another undersized winger, but we think Eklund is amazing.
Could be.
Like, maybe. There's possibilities.
It is worth remembering if you're going to try to guess, use educated guesswork. It is worth noting that we do know that they took out both Jake O'Brien and Brady Martin to dinner at the Combine. Yeah. We didn't hear of them doing that for Roger McQueen, so perhaps it's as simple as, okay, well, it's probably Martin and O'Brien that are in that tier.
Easily could be. But then when I combine that with the next couple of like answers here, they mentioned we're going best player on our board at number 6, and later on they came back to this like, yeah, top of the draft, it's definitely best player available. You look more at positional needs as you go deeper into the draft because you're just trying to now you're just trying to fill your organizational depth chart because some of these guys are going to work out. Some of them aren't. That's the nature of the draft, especially when you get into like the third round or later. Who the hell knows? So it's, we're going to look at positional needs. But when I heard like top of the draft BPA, that to me means, yeah, man, there's a really good chance it's Martone too. And like that kind of settled.
Really? Because some people in the press room as I was leaving kind of had similar feelings of like, oh, maybe this puts Martone back on the board. The emphasis that Briere had on how difficult it is to get centers, that nobody trades it, because that was something that he said in this presser.
He said that a bunch of times.
That nobody trades centers. And to me, that told me, maybe it's Martone because he's just that good in the way the board falls, but we are learning how difficult it is to get a center in any other way aside from drafting them. And we have this opportunity. Flahr said, obviously, there's a ton of centers in the top 10. To me, I came away from that presser thinking it's more likely that they're going to go center than more likely that it's going to be Martone.
I think it's really I think there's a ton of options, but yeah, just the idea that Briere said, calling around. Yeah, you can't get a top 6 center. And you look at the free agent market, like we had this conversation extensively yesterday. Sam Bennett, that second tier of center, not a 1C. Having an amazing playoff, could very well win the Conn Smythe. Yeah, he's not a franchise player.
No, he's not.
Yeah, there's a really good chance he gets freaking $10 million a year this offseason. So if you're going to go the free agent route, I mean, that's the nature of free agency. We say it all the time. Players associations fight so hard for it because you get overpaid. Yeah. But like if this is, you can't get a 1 or a 2C in a trade, and signing a 2C costs you what a 1C costs. You have to draft them. Well, that's kind of the argument we've been making this whole time with, maybe a few more years then, but they don't seem all that interested. But we'll,
And we talked about this, when we were breaking down Victor Eklund.
Yeah.
About, I think you asked me if you're just looking at talent, where would you put Eklund? And I love Victor Eklund. He's one of my favorite players in the draft. I had him on my list of top 10 guys that I just like. And you were like, well, based on talent, where would he be? And I was like, maybe 5 or 6. But I went back and I listened to that again and I thought about it. And the thing that, because you could look at it and be like, well, you should just draft the most talented player. You got to draft the most talented player. What you do have to take into account, and Danny spoke to this today, you just spoke to it, is the difficulty of getting certain player positional types and player types. Like, yes, Victor Eklund is real good. But guess what if there's an elite player that hits the market via trade or free agency, they are much more likely to be smallish wings versus centers or versus top tier defensemen. And that's why it can be rational for a team, to basically be like, well, Ty goes to the center, Ty goes to the defenseman, because they know they're more likely to be able to get a really talented point per game smallish winger in free agency or via trade versus getting a top 6 center or a top pair defenseman. And that has to be accounted for when you're picking at the top of the draft.
And when you see the scarcity of centers, I really like, okay, you go with best player available. Playing that position and the possibility of sticking in that position when you get to the NHL, that's a skill. Like, it's not just like positional need. Playing center is a skill. There's a reason we can't just move TK to center. And like, we've tried moving guys around and it just doesn't work. Like Noah Cates, Scott Lawton, their versatility is really useful. And we're not talking about top 6 players here. We're talking about guys that are on your 3rd and 4th line. And those guys are so valuable because they maybe aren't even natural centers, but can do it. All right. We have to take our next commercial break. 1-800-588-2300 Empire.
Today.
That's some real, well done, Charlie, multitasking there. Listen, I've been telling you for months that Empire Today is the place for new flooring. I don't know why anyone would go anywhere else, because Empire Today, they've got flooring experts. They've got dedicated professionals who focus on flooring every single day. It's not like when you walk into a big box store and suddenly you're talking to some kid who has no idea because they were stocking light bulbs yesterday, and tomorrow their job is going to be working at the coffee shop on the grounds. No, these are people who live and breathe flooring with Empire, and their flooring experts can do something not a single big box store can do, and that's bring the showroom right to your home. You can pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space, in your space. See how it all looks up against your furniture, up against the paint in your house, and all of that without leaving your house. And they will take the precise measurements for you and answer all your questions, so there are no surprises. And with Empire today, you get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. So schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. And PHLY listeners, listen up, because you can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details. And while we're here, we got to talk about our friends at Bet365, because Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide and live streams almost 800,000 events each year, plus early payouts across the NBA and NHL. If you are looking at some money line bets or looking to include the money line in some of your parlays on tonight's game, you get up by 3 like Florida did in Game 4. It doesn't matter whether or not they hold on, because you get that early payout. It's marked as a win. And hey, maybe you want to come on back and bet the other side, win twice on the same game. That is a possibility with Bet365 and the early payouts, because it's never ordinary at Bet365. And we have breaking news from our friends at Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. All you got to do is sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets, whether your initial bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Chuck, I want to get to this idea of trades and everything, but first we have to get to the art of words, word of the day. And the word of the day, it's size. Because you asked a question about the perceived size issue with this team and whether they thought it was worth addressing in this draft. They say,
or at least avoiding certain because really what I'm going back to is the conversation we had with Corey Promen last week, where Corey was talking about how, if James Hagans in particular is available at 6, the Flyers took Matvei Michkov in 2023 with the 7th overall pick. He's under 6 foot. They took Zhetlutchenko last year. He's under 6 foot. They signed Travis Konechny for nearly a decade. He's under 6 foot. These are your top of the lineup guys, or at least they're projecting Zhetlutchenko to be a top of the lineup guy. And as Corey said, it's pretty rare for teams to be taking a bunch of sub 6 foot forwards in a row in round 1 to be the core of your team. Because look, Michkov is clearly already part of the core. Luchenko, they're hoping, will be. And this guy who they're taking at 6, like, you wouldn't be taking a guy at 6 if you didn't think he had the potential to be a core guy. So Corey questioned whether they would be willing to have that many core guys in their forward core be sub 6 foot, and if that concerned them. So I wanted to make sure I got Danny on the record to ask him if that was something, and try to, obviously he's going to hedge, he's going to, dodge and weave, but I wanted to see what the answer would be. I wanted to see if he seemed like he was dodging or if he was willing to take make a real stand there. And I think he more leaned on the latter. I think he kind of took a bit of a stand there.
Yeah. And even like when we discuss Brady Martin, yeah, he plays big, but he's 6 foot 187. He is basically average.
He's not huge.
He is basically average. He's not bigger than like most of, he's right around, I think is 6 foot 6'1", around 200 is the average. Whether or not you include goalies, the height changes a little, but
Briere, his response,
the compete level, like size, that's one thing, but maybe not as important as like, is he relentless? What is his compete level? Like that sort of thing, just as, if not more important than size.
Yes, Danny's answer, his initial answer was compete level, hockey IQ.
Yeah.
Those are two things that they probably value more than size. Talked a little bit about how he believes that, guys like Hathaway, Delorier, Sealer can protect the smaller guys. But the money quote was at the end where he goes, we're aware of the concerns about not being too small up front. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't sway us too much. Look, he's obviously giving himself a potential out here. But that was pretty forceful in that, look, is it a factor? Sure, it's a factor because, like, a guy being smaller is a negative. But it's not like we're going to cross James Higgins off our board just because he's sub 6 foot. I feel pretty confident. If they don't take James Higgins, maybe part of it is that he's small, but it's that he's small, and because he's small, they're worried that he won't be that effective.
His playing
not,
style.
Not because they're terrified to have a forward core with James Higgins, Mape Michkov, Travis Konechny, and Jan Luchenko at the top 5 years down the line.
The thing I took away from it is because we have talked, like, especially with, but you've done it with Flahr as well. Like, their focus on size seems primarily on the blue line, and they even said it was a factor last year
for the
with Zeev, and it's like, we have Andre, we have York. York's like average. He's like 6'2", but he's not. He doesn't play huge. And he's not Rasmus Ristolainen. He's just average-ish. Like we have Drysdale, of course. So like, how much redundancy do we want in our core, especially of these youngish guys? Right. The forwards, it seems, it's more about playing style. Like Travis Konechny, small. Does he play small? Not really, so it's not a concern to them.
It's fair.
Like Matvei Michkov, small, but we saw he's not backing down from anyone. He lives in the dirty areas. Like his favorite spot is behind or next to the net. It's not as if he's purely a perimeter player. So like maybe they see defense and forwards one way, and when you look at the board, it's a foregone conclusion they're taking a forward. That was my whole takeaway from that part of the conversation.
They're definitely taking a forward because, and Flahr at one point did say, maybe there's a defenseman, but it does seem like this is going to be a forward because Schaefer they love, but he's going to be gone at one. So, in some weird scenario, maybe he goes at 2, but he's not going past 2. Sure. So they're not even worried about Schaefer. It's like, he's awesome. Don't worry about him. Ain't going to see him no more. But it does seem to me that you're right, that the size thing for them is more important on defense than it is for them up front, which intuitively makes sense given who the general manager of the team is. Danny Briere probably and it goes both ways. As a small forward, he probably was like, it was real annoying playing against teams where all the defensemen were huge. It was tougher for me, but also I was a small forward and I, kicked tons of butt out there for years and years. Maybe not that big of a deal as long as you have the compete, as long as you have the hockey IQ, both of which he had.
It's like, I did lead the 2010 playoffs in scoring, and like they had Duncan Keith over there. Just saying, it doesn't always come down to size, and that's where I think we get into the compete level conversation, and that is our word of the day, brought to you by Art of Words.
One thing about before we get into the trading idea, this is the one thing that still gives me pause. And I know, there's going to be a lot of chatter about Brady Martin. I suspect he's probably one of those guys that they were talking about. They obviously took him out to dinner. He has that, he plays like a Flyer. But the one thing that gives me pause about him being the guy is their emphasis on hockey IQ. I don't think, and maybe they differ for my opinion, but I don't think hockey IQ is a huge strength of his. And they tend to love the hockey IQ guys. Like Michkov's offensive IQ is through the roof. Luchenko's defensive and neutral zone IQ is through the roof. They like the high hockey IQ guys. And I don't really see Brady Martin as a high hockey IQ guy. He's a high compete guy to be sure. But hockey IQ, I don't know.
That's one of the reasons you said when you look at him, you're like, okay, he plays center, but is he an NHL center? I don't know. That's not... It's usually your IQ guys that stick at that position, especially when you're talking about at 6, outside possibility, but we're hoping for a 1C. We're hoping one of these guys develops into that. This is likely to be the highest we're going to draft over the next several years. So you want to come away with that biggest need. Is he going to be that? Questionable.
Like my gut, and I know you are in the I'm just assuming they're taking Brady Martin. Like my gut feel is that if they don't take one of the 6, it would be Jake O'Brien.
Okay.
Because I just think he fits more with what they tend to like in guys. And they have the Jay McKee connection, which they tend to like having extra information about guys. And he does have a little bit extra size and a lot of developmental runway. He's young for the draft year, which they obviously like with Luchenko. I just have a gut feel that if it's not one of those 6, that it's more likely to be O'Brien than Martin. Maybe I'm totally off, but I just have a gut feel it's more likely to be O'Brien than Martin.
Maybe, and that would be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I do wonder if it's like, and again, this is just me saying I think they're taking Brady Martin because I can only hear he's a Flyer so many times before I start to believe it too.
Like we talked about,
and I think Button had his, he had him at 6.
Yeah,
still.
but why? I get the sense people on our Discord do this too. Why do you look at Craig Button's list and say he's at 6? That's it's not a mock draft. That's a ranking.
Yeah,
he's not picking who the teams are going to pick. He's ranking the guys. People on our Discord do that too. Why?
I think it's an informed ranking. That's why.
I don't know. But there's a difference between a mock draft and a ranking.
There is.
A ranking is how he ranks the guys. A mock draft is who he thinks the teams are going to take. If he was doing a mock draft and had Brady Martin of the Flyers, that would be one thing, which he did right after the lottery. But a ranking, like I have James Hagen's 3rd. In no way, shape, or form do I think James Hagen's is getting taken 3rd.
Doesn't seem like it. All right, let's hit the idea about the trades, Charlie.
Okay, so obviously this is going to be a topic of conversation in the lead up to the draft, the idea of trade-ups, because they're fun. Everybody loves trade-ups. They're exciting. Danny was asked about that. He said, look, we're open to it. We have assets. You know, we're open to those conversations. We've had some of those conversations. But right now, everybody is looking to trade up. No one is looking to trade down, which doesn't quite fit with some of the rumors you've heard about, oh, what about Utah? You know, what about San Jose? Danny is more saying like, look, you might be hearing that, but this is more that everybody wants to trade up rather than teams are itching to trade down. Not saying it's impossible, but again, it was a little bit of cold water that Danny threw on the idea of trading up to 4. More interesting, though, and this is more just talking about incentives rather than rumors. If the Flyers are being honest, and their tier 2 it starts at 2, presumably with somebody like Misa, and goes to 8, and they're at 6. And I believe it was Flahr who said from 2 to 3 to 8, or I think it might have been Danny, from 2 to 3, 2 or 3 to 8, all those guys are pretty close. If all those guys are pretty close and you're sitting at 6, there isn't a ton of incentive for you to trade up to 4.
Yeah.
If you think that everybody between 2 and 8 is about the same, there's little gaps maybe, but like you're not going to give up another first to jump from 6 to 4 because you think that Caleb Desnoyers is going to be a superstar. Based on what they said today, it doesn't seem like the incentives would align for them to pay the price that it would seem like it would cost to trade up from 6. What was your read on what you heard?
No, that is exactly. And the idea of, and you have to throw it out there because if you get the offer, the offer you can't refuse, you'll trade down. But if 8 comes calling and it's all the same ranking,
fair.
Like maybe you pick up some more assets and then you use those assets to improve the NHL roster because they had that conversation of like, do you make the trade for an NHL player to get better now? And it's, listen, that temptation is always there, but is the player we're trading for only going to help us for the next 2 to 3 years versus, yeah, we would like that pick and then he helps us for the next 8 years? Like, how do we balance that? So maybe that trade down possibility exists as well.
I'd be surprised.
I would be surprised.
I mean, maybe
when I hear it's 2 to 8 is the same and they're at 6, like last year, it was only one spot because they play the game of, we'll just take Zeev. It's not like we have anything against him. But if you want to give us something, we'll move down one spot.
I could see
perhaps that sort of thing. If another team's board ends at 6 and then it's a whole new tier, hey, what are you willing to get up into this tier from 7 or 8?
Yeah, like let's say the 2 guys available out of that, the generally accepted tier are Porter Martone and Brady Martin. And the Flyers are on Brady Martin because of the hockey IQ and they want to take a center and they know Boston really wants Brady Martin. It's like, well, we'll flip picks and then they take Jake O'Brien at 7, who they would have taken at 6 anyway. Yeah, I could see that. But I can't see a world where they trade out of the top 8.
No. All right, Charlie, we are headed to overtime. That's right. Go to allphly.com for more of the show if you're part of the TV audience. All right, I want to get a little bit more about the press conference and then play the Roenick clip today from Gargano's show because it was really good.
Okay.
But first, it's back, baby. It's that ball knower bonus, the Stanley Cup puck knower bonus, as I am calling it. We have another puck knower bonus I'd like to tell you about. It's for each game of the Stanley Cup final, and all you have to do is pick the winner of the game. It's super easy, and you can win a gift card to the PHLY merch store if you make your pick correctly. Here's how it works. First, click the link in the description below and then make your pick. Just choose between the Oilers or Panthers. Who wins tonight? Then you place an order in the ALLCITY merch store for $25 or more. If you pick correctly, you get a gift card to the merch store for the same amount as your original order. It's basically a BOGO if you get it right. One important thing, you must click the link in the chat or in our show notes to qualify for the gift card. So coming up, all you got to do, pick the winner of the Stanley Cup final. What is this, game 6? Between the Oilers and Panthers. That's it. Boom. Pick your winner, then place your order for $25 or more. And if you are correct, you get a gift card to the PHLY merch store for the same amount as your original order. And all of the on-sale items are eligible for the promotion as long as the total value of the order is $25 or more. And while we're talking about some internal stuff, we got to tell you about tomorrow's Streamathon. It is upon us. Wednesday, June 18th, it is go time. PHLY going live for a 12-hour straight Streamathon presented by our friends at TrueMark Financial. That's right. A full day of wall-to-wall sports, laughs, chaos, and your favorite PHLY talent doing what they do best, entertaining all you Philly fans out there. We're going to be talking special guests, behind-the-scenes surprises. Really looking forward. I think we have a producer thing that's going to happen where we finally get to see a lot of our hardworking producers in front of the camera.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Real excited for that. There's going to be a little friendly competition between all the shows. That's great. So whether you're repping the Birds or Bleeding Orange or just here for the vibes, you're not going to want to miss this. And the best way to support us, it's simple. Hit the subscribe button. Not only does it help us keep creating the content Philly fans deserve, but it gets you front row access to every moment of the madness. So mark your calendar, clear your schedule, and get ready to ride with Philly for 12 straight hours tomorrow, Wednesday, June 18th, the PHLY Streamathon. Subscribe right now on the YouTube page. That's simple. Free. Yeah. Hit the like button while you're at it. We're at 272. Much appreciated.
Let's get to 300 though.
Yeah, we're in overtime.
Let's get to 300.
Let's get it here. All right.
I saw we had over 400 viewers at one point. Yeah. We can get to 300.
What did anything else stand out to you about this press conference that you think we need to get to today?
I thought those were the big ones. It was interesting that Flahr said that they have one goalie with a first-round grade. The generally accepted best goalie in the draft is Joshua Ravensburg. And he's interesting because he's not – the production, the results have not been great. The tools are fantastic. He's huge. He's athletic. He's got good numbers in terms of like high danger save percentage. So you think like, okay, he's a guy who's going to be able to make pro-level saves. But – you look at his overall numbers and you're kind of like, yeah, they're okay.
I really liked, I think it was Flahr who said it, which was like, even the AGM, who's basically just in charge of the draft, is like, yeah, we're not throwing away picks to get older rental type players.
Yeah. Which
basically threw cold water on the Mason Marchment thing for me.
Yeah.
To which I said, thank God.
Yeah.
Because I thought at no point does this make sense.
30-year-old wing with 1 year left on his contract doesn't seem to make much sense for what their needs are.
Other than being 6'5", he fills none of the needs that they actually have here.
I would agree.
So that's that. That was the Briere and Flahr press conference. Perhaps we'll get a little bit more into it tomorrow. But before we get out of here, since there are no super chats, if you want to donate to the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, make sure you do so in the little icon below the chat box on YouTube, and you can make your donations there. We are going to play for you a clip of Jeremy Roenick on Anthony Gargano's show today talking about new head coach Rick Tocchet.
Hey, by the way, cuz, this is why we say this. This is why old-time hockey always will rule. Because to play with grit, to play with fire, to play with like emotion and respect to the game, you're going to win. And Corey Perry, 10 goals. The oldest guys in the game right now are showing you guys how to win. And it's like, okay. So there's something about us talking about the old times and how we played with grit and fire and tenacity and like hard-nosed hockey. Like it's not pussyfooting around and dancing around. It's hard-nosed hockey. And Florida Panthers are hard-nosed hockey. The way they play, it's insane.
Yes.
So they are changing the way general managers are looking at their teams, 100%. And Danny Briere just brought in the footnote of Philadelphia hockey in Rick Tocchet.
Well, I couldn't wait to ask you about Toc, knowing how close you are, and him coming back home, what this means for the franchise.
Obviously, everything matters how the players react, right? But there's no question they're going to have a coach that's going to put them in the right position, give them the right system, and make them feel the way they need to feel to play the game the way the Philadelphia Flyers play the game. Not the way the game's supposed to be played, but the way the Flyers play the game. They have a jersey that has one of the craziest teams of all time in terms of the Broad Street Bullies. Okay. When you pull that jersey on, you pull over a mentality that your history has built. Tocchet's a part of it. Briere's a part of it. Jones is a part of it. Now, all these guys that put that jersey on every single day are going to have to answer to those guys. And they're going to have to answer to John LeClaire, who's also in the business, who has to answer to Patrick Sharp, who's also in the business.
I got chills.
So, like, for me, you pull that Flyer jersey on and you become a Broad Street Bully, period. End of sentence. And that's the way you're going to win. We see what's happening in Florida. They are Broad Street Bullies 2.0. So that's what needs to happen.
Charlie?
Did you just do this to troll me?
Yes.
Because this is everything that I disagree with about the way a team should be built.
I actually wanted to relate it back to the press conference. I think you need this. I think you need size and toughness, and you need to be a little dirty sometimes. You need to play. You need to have the ability to match what the Florida Panthers do. But when I hear that, I'm like, yeah, kind of, from Jeremy Roenick. What I disagreed with in the press conference was when Danny Briere brought up the size thing and said, well, you know, we have the Hathaways and the Deloriers and the Sealers who can kind of protect the smaller guys. And that's where I think I differ with this team building philosophy is I want really good players who will cross-check you in the teeth. If it's Garnett Hathaway, who I love, but if he plays 17 minutes in a playoff game, we're not going to win that playoff game. Like, I think you need it at the top of your lineup, but really, and the idea that, well, there's other ways to do it. It's like, I don't know, man. If Nick Delorier is just for a playoff game, I don't have a ton of confidence in that game going well for us, or at least us using 12 forwards in that game. Like, maybe dress a seventh defenseman instead. But I just wanted to relate it back to that. And also, I did want to troll you because it's fun.
I actually, in all honesty, and like I have nothing against JR, but I actually like the fact that you played that clip because now I have something to point to when I say that, like, yeah, hockey people are just in love with the fact that the Florida Panthers are winning because this is the way they want hockey to be played. And also, there are a lot of people in the organization that think that and JR isn't in the organization, but he's friends with a lot of people in the organization that believe that the Philadelphia Flyers should only play one way. And if they don't, it's a betrayal of, you know, what the logo means. Jeremy Roenick in that 2.5-minute clip expressed every single one of the things that I say is real, and then I have some people be like, "Oh no, you're exaggerating. No one actually still believes that." Like, no, they do. It's very real in hockey. I deal with it all the time when I talk to people in the game. I hear it all the time, and it was actually nice to hear someone express it that bluntly and succinctly. Everything that I'm saying that people in the game believe still.
While I think the people, like, you know, the 200 hockey men and whatever, like, they want it to be true, so it is. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there is something to it, but I don't think it's your only path. I do find it interesting that we know the Flyers, if they had their choice, if there was a NHL complete fantasy redraft, like they would build the Florida Panthers if they had their way. They would build the Broad Street Bullies 2.0, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
They haven't actually made any strides in doing that, though. Like under Danny Briere for the past 2 years, that's not a thing that has been their focus, other than like extending Garnett Hathaway, extending Nick Seeler. Like it hasn't really been a thing that they have been hyper focused on.
It's true.
Like it has been more about talent accumulation and then see where we are. So I do think there's a little bit of a disconnect there. But the thing I do agree with Roenick is you do have to have a certain mentality. And I would like to see that mentality restored to everyone who puts on the Flyers uniform.
Okay.
I don't think you need to go out and have 400 penalty minutes every game. Like that's just a good way to be on the penalty kill a lot. And power play is pretty good these days. But I do think you need that mentality. And if there's one thing I do like about the Tocchet hire is that hopefully he demands that out of them the same way John Tortorella did, but with more staying power, perhaps.
Okay. Look, I obviously lean more towards skill and hockey IQ than just run everybody into the boards. And I love physicality. I love hits. I just think that if you're trying to build a team, you need really good players. And you shouldn't be like, well, you know, this guy is an 85 and this guy's a 95, but the 85 guy, you know, man, he hits hard. Like, I'd rather take the 95 guy because he's more skilled, he's going to put up more points, and he's going to have more of an impact overall. That's my general view. I think that what you're going to see this summer, at the draft possibly, but also I would suspect in free agency and trades, is you might see some GMs, and whether Danny Briere is going to be one of them, I don't know, make moves trying to be the Florida Panthers. And I suspect in 3-4 years, some of those moves will not seem as intelligent as they might right now.
And the way you put it a couple of shows ago, might have been like a week ago at this point, and that'll be it. We'll wrap up. Everyone is always trying to win the previous battle rather than the next one.
Right.
And what I am hoping, while, again, I want my team to be tough as hell, because I think if you're not going to make it through 4 rounds of the playoffs. If there is this hyper focus on, all right, Sam Bennett is going for $10 million, who's Sam Bennett light, and then he goes for 8.5 or whatever. If there is a market inefficiency where suddenly a bunch of really good skilled players don't have the market that maybe they should just based on their production, Danny Briere is able to take advantage of that in free agency and trades. Like that's kind of my hope as well. If Florida has this league in a stranglehold and everyone thinks there's only one way, can we come up with a way to counteract that and take advantage of that? And that's the sign of a forward-thinking general manager, and I hope we have one.
Yeah, I mean,
also, I want to win some fights.
Right. I'm just saying that interview that Jeremy Roenick did.
There's a reason I played.
That was the old school mentality distilled into a 150-second clip.
We didn't have to go 12 minutes overtime today. I wanted to play you that clip to end the show on a very funny note.
I think if you lean too much into that style and like, oh, Corey Perry, they're the best, like you're going to build a pretty bad hockey.
Corey Perry would not have 10 goals if he didn't play with like the 2 best forwards in the league.
Well, not 2 best, but pretty darn.
2 of the 5 best. All right. And that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, get your draft party tickets. I'm not joking. Allphly.com. Hit the events tab. They're not going to be there on Friday, June 27th. You have a few days before they sell out. Get in on them. Whether you want the $5 general admission or the $55 VIP, get them now. Follow us here on YouTube. Hit that reminder bell so you get notifications whenever we go live. We'll be back live tomorrow at noon, and it's going to be a little bit of a different show because tomorrow's like musical chairs day. Everyone's going to be doing all different shows, showing up in different places. So we'll see who's even on. I don't remember the schedule, quite honestly. All right. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. We're also on Blue Sky. And follow the podcast wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers. I am Bill Matz. That is Charlie O'Connor. Till tomorrow, be excellent to each other.
We all silly like the mayor.